All right, folks, we're going to build a full stack app and we're going to make it real quick. You're going to open up Terminal. You're going to go to Applications, Utilities, Terminal. You're going to see if you have Node.js by writing node-v and pressing enter. If it's a number that looks like this, you're golden. If it's not, go to this website, nodejs.org, and get Node. Go back to your terminal, type in npx create react app, and then to do test. If you want to use a different name, you can. If you want to follow along the tutorial, this is going to be easier to use. Press enter. It's going to spit out some stuff. At the end, it's going to spit this out. Do these two commands as well. When you start the app, it will take a little bit more time and then say compiled successfully. And it should also open up a browser window that goes here or here. And then if it doesn't, you can go there yourself. And what you should see there is this. This thing's going to be rotating. This is the sample kind of boilerplate basic create React app. We're going to go to GitHub. You're going to get yourself a GitHub account if you don't have one. You're going to go to the upper right corner, click on your profile picture, go to repositories. There will be a big green button after you click that that says new. Click that to create a new repository. There's really nothing in here you have to set or change except your repository name. Otherwise, you can leave all the defaults unless you want to look into them and change some. Clicking create repository is going to bring you to a new page, and scroll down that page a little bit, and we're going to go with push an existing repository from the command line. So we're going to run each of these commands in turn, use your own GitHub name and your own app name. If it's this one, you use this one. Run the first one, run the second one, run the third one. It should show you some things have pushed. And go back to GitHub, and in the upper left corner, click on the name of your app, this guy here, and it should show you all the files from the one you created are now in GitHub. So we're on to Netlify. You want to have a Netlify account. There are other ways to host apps like AWS. We're using Netlify. And once you have your kind of username and team and everything created, you're going to go to add a new site in the upper right corner, import an existing project. You're going to go to GitHub. You're going to authorize Netlify. If you do it in a more DIY way, you don't have to make these services get access to private data. That's just kind of the trade-off. It's going to take longer otherwise, but you'll have more control over everything and more privacy. But yep, this is just a quicker way. Once you authorize Netlify, you're going to pick your repository. If it doesn't show up, you might have to configure Netlify to specifically have access to that GitHub repository. So when you click this guy here, something like this will show up. You should go into the select repositories and pick the one you want. If you choose it, it will take you to this page. This is just the beginning of the next form you'll see. There's a few other options below. Shouldn't have to change any of those. You can just go right down to deploy site, and it'll take you here, and it'll say site deploy in progress. We're going to leave that alone for right now and move on to Supabase. This is the most involved one. There's a lot going on. It's a fairly new product, but it's really good. Makes you not have to deal with setting up a database on AWS. If it doesn't seem quick, trust me, it's quick. So, have a Supabase account. On your dashboard, click on New Project. In your new project, you are going to set some things again. You're going to set a name, you're going to set a password, your region, what pricing plan. You're going to click Create New Project. It's going to take you to this page here. Go on down to Table Editor, and that will take you here where you're going to create a new table. You're going to make the name of your table items. You can add a description if you want, no big deal. Right below this in the form, you're going to see all this stuff. Now, just leave this checked for now. We're going to come back to the fact that policies are required. We're going to skip down to the columns here. Going to add a column. Call it to-do_text. Make it this type, variable character. And as a default, just put something, maybe eggs. Click save. That's going to be down here in this part of the screen. It'll take you back to your table. You'll see these things, this insert button, and way over to the right, you'll see no active RLS policies. So that's what we just saw the warning about. We're going to click on this. We're going to go to new policy and click that. We're going to go pretty rapid fire through here and use some of their templates. These are very important because they specify when you're talking to Supabase from your front end app, what permissions you have, like what you can read, what you can insert. And if you're making an app for something important, some production thing, this is very, you want to be careful about this. For now, we're not going to be careful about it because it's just a silly to-do app. So you'll see this pop up that says adding new policy to public.items. Click get started quickly. Pick the first one on the left here. Click use this template. Look at this screen, don't change anything, looks good. It's basically saying anyone can read this data if they have the right URL and key, which we'll get to later. Click review the final policy, which they show you in SQL. This is beyond the scope of this tutorial, but it's interesting stuff. And save policy. So it's going to take you back here. You'll see one active RLS policy. We're going to have to create one more, but before we do that, we're going to insert a new row so we can see something when we test the app. So we're going to go to insert row, give it an ID of 1. You can leave the date blank because it's going to create a default one, and give it some kind of text, maybe cheese. And click save on that. And you should see this row pop up. So there we have it. And so we're going to go back to this one active RLS policy in the upper right and click that. This time we're going to choose enable insert access, this template, this second one here. And we're going to mostly go through and just use that template. So click use this template. The one thing we're going to change is go to this drop down, click it. Instead of authenticated, you want to click anon. So this is going to let anybody who has the URL and key for this database to insert anything, which again, wouldn't be a problem in this tutorial, but if you're making a real app, then you want to be careful about that. So do that. Then go down to review. It'll take you to another review screen that starts with reviewing policy to be created on public.items. And you're going to set that policy and it'll take you right back to the table again. So we've set our policies, we've made our table, we've put something into it. Now, last thing we do is go down to settings, this little guy down here, the gear icon on the left hand. You're going to go from there to API, and then you're going to see project URL and project API keys. This one here and this one here, these first two with the copy button, copy those down into, notes or a text editor or something. Last but certainly not least, we're going to put it all together. So go back to your Netlify. The site should be done deploying by now. You can click on this link to go check it out. You should see, if you do that, the same thing you saw when you tested your app locally earlier. And now we're going to actually write some code. So go back to your terminal. Write npm I and then this here at Supabase/Supabase.js. This is the library that allows your app to talk to Supabase and send data to it and get data from it. You might see this high vulnerability thing when you do that. I guess don't worry about it is the short answer. These aren't as high security vulnerabilities as they sound. We're going to ignore that for now. But again, if you're making this app for a production purpose, you might want to look into this and fix this up. Now you're going to need a code editor, a code editing app. So VS Code is one of them. WebStorm is one of them. I use VS Code. Take your pick. They should all look something like this. So open it up. In your code editor, above this picture, there should be like a file menu. Do file open, go find your to-do test folder. Should be in your home directory on your computer somewhere. Once you open it, just go directly to source, and then in there will be an app.js file. Open that file. We're going to go in there and we're going to write this code. Basically, this is going to be the new code in app.js. There are some things that you keep from the Create React App template, and many things we add. I'm going to do a real bird's eye high-level overview of what I added. So you're importing some things from React and from this Supabase client library to be able to use them. You are creating these 3 variables. Ignore the rest of this for now. These to-do items, this new to-do item, and Supabase client. What they are and what they're doing will become clear. So first things first, this use effect. What this block is basically doing is saying, when the app starts up, I want to run this once. What it's doing is saying, okay, create the Supabase client. So these things are important. These are going to be the URL and the key that you copied from Supabase earlier. These 2 strings. That's going to create a Supabase client. You're going to set that client into the actual state of your app. That's this line. Then you're going to actually use that client to fetch what's in your items table. So this select star from items here, it's going to get that one row we made that says cheese. And finally, this line here says, when we've done that, once we've gotten that data, we're going to set it as another variable, this to-do items variable. The reason this says, then response and then response.data, the kind of shape of this thing that you're getting from Supabase is, you can learn about it in the Supabase docs. Don't worry about it for now. But if you want to go, work on this later or change it, you're going to have to know that. So get familiar with the Supabase docs if you're going to continue with this. This insert row function here, all it's doing is using this Supabase client again to insert something, and it's a function, so it takes an argument. It's going to take that argument and say, okay, insert a row with this to-do text. It's pretty simple. There's just a lot around it. And then select what you just inserted, bring it back to you. This data is the thing you're selecting that you just inserted, right? So what it's actually giving you is like a list of rows, except there's only one row because you inserted one row. So you're getting the first item in this data that you got back from Supabase. And then this whole line is saying, set the to-do items as whatever the to-do items were already, plus what you just inserted. So this finally is what's being shown. So it's basically just a container with an input and a list of items. So this input, let's go through it. On change, so when you're in the input and you're typing stuff, every time you type a letter or delete a letter, what's happening here is take the event that happened. This change event.target.value is the actual text that's in there. You're going to set this new to-do item variable as that text. And basically that's a way of keeping track of what's in that field so that you can then input it. So that brings us down here. On key down, when you press the key that is enter, it's going to use that function we talked about earlier, insert row, and then say, okay, I want to insert row. I want to give it the argument of new to-do item. Again, that's what's in the input field currently. It's going to take that and it's going to insert a row into Supabase, as we saw up here, with that text. And so finally, this is the list of to-do items that you initially fetched, also the one that you are adding items to. So this will say to-do items.map. What this map means is for each of these, return something else. And what that something else is, okay, let's take the item, the to-do item, and we're going to say paragraph element. And the content of that is going to be the items to-do text. This key index thing is something React wants you to do. That's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, that's what this is doing. So we're finally going to go back to our terminal and say npm start, press enter. What should happen is your localhost 3000 is going to show this new app here. So it's going to grab cheese from Supabase. If you put something in here, it should add it when you press enter. And this is a little Easter egg, a little bonus. But if you install the Chrome extension React DevTools, you don't need to do this. This is going to add some time. But just so you know, you can add that extension and see the state that's going on as you're using the app. So this shows, okay, for each of these things, there's the created at date from Supabase. And then if you were able to keep scrolling, you'd see, oh, there's the ID, there's the to-do text. All we're doing is grabbing the to-do text from that and then showing it here. And you can also see the state that you've set for what's inside the field, that new to-do item, and the state for the Supabase client, which you don't show it or anything. It's just the thing that is actually manipulating the data from the front end. And so if you go back to your terminal, you're going to say git status. This isn't actually necessary, but it's nice to see, okay, you changed something in your package files, which is that happened when you installed that Supabase.js library. And then you change what was in app.js. So we're going to take these changes. We're going to say git commit -am and then write a message like added to-do list functionality, press enter. And finally, you're going to push that commit git push origin main. That's going to push it up to your GitHub repository. Netlify is going to see that. It's going to say, oh, there's changes. I'm going to push those changes to the site. So if you go to Netlify, after a little bit, it should say publish deploy for, and then your, so if you go to Netlify, go down to deploys on the left-hand menu, you should be able to see that it has published the deploy after a few minutes for your site, which it won't be, again, this name, it'll be something else. If you go back here, it's, this string.netlify.app. Your app should be fully up and running. You should be able to add to-dos and see those to-dos show up immediately. And yeah, there you have it. Full stack app. Fun stuff.